Our distinguished speakers and chair and speakers. So I hope each and everybody is present here. So I now take the opportunity to welcome and invite to the distinguished guests and speakers of this session. It is my pleasure and privilege to be welcoming all the intellectual delegates present amongst us for these third plenary sessions. So I would like to call upon the stage the chair of this today's session, Mr. Carpenter, to the dais, the distinguished fellow, Indian Foundation, France. Please. So now, with us, we have 4 speakers in this session. So I would like to call upon the stage Reverend Professor Naresh Man Vajracharya, former Vice Chancellor of Lumbini Buddhist University, Nepal. Please. Next, I call upon Venerable Kempo Setan Dorji, Secretary Council for Administration and Development Affairs, Central Monastic Body of the Kingdom of Bhutan. Please. So next, Professor Balaganpati Devarkonda, Professor, Department of Philosophy, Delhi University. So I welcome to him to the dais. Professor Balaganpati. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Dan Rogers, engineer and scholars of Sankhya Cosmology for Scientific Applications, USA. Please, sir. So, we have the distinguished speakers and chairs for the session. So now the time for felicitate our distinguished chairs and speakers. So, first of all, I would like to request Professor Kinjalbehen Desai, Placement and PRO, Gujarat University, to felicitate today's chair, Mr. Carpenter, Distinguished Fellow, Indian Foundation. So we are going to felicitate on the behalf of Gujarat University. So with his small moment and soil. So thank you, madam. Now I request to Professor Mamta Brahmabharji, BK School of Management, to felicitate Reverend Professor Naresh Man Vajracharya, former Vice Chancellor of Lumbini. Mamta madam, please. So I would like to call upon the stage Dr. Amit Kumar Dubey, Assistant Professor, IKS, to felicitate Venerable Kempo Choten Dorji, Secretary Council for Administration and Development Affairs, Central Monastic Body of Kingdom of Bhutan, Dr. Dubey. Next, I request Professor Kanti Bhai Malshatter, the Professor of Gujarat Department, to felicitate Professor Bala Ganpati Devarkonda, Professor of Philosophy in Delhi University. Now I requested Professor Dr. Ravi Ranjan sir to felicitate Dr. Dan Roger, engineer and scholar of Sankhya Cosmology of Scientific Applications, USA. So without wasting any time, because we are already in late, half an hour late, so I handed over the podium to Reverend chairs to carry over the session. Thank you.
Good evening. We are now approaching the end of the busy day, but just to present perhaps a thought before I leave the floor to the four speakers, the four eminent speakers, I would like to come back to the point that was raised a few times about how cosmology, which has been translated as Brahmanda Shastram, and Brahmanda Shastram or Brahmanda Vidya is very much connected to Brahma Vidya, because you are talking about the two facets, or at least the internal and the external, the outer and the internal, the explicit and the implicit that David Bohm talked about, the implicate reality, which is what we consider to be transcendent, or sometimes we call it spiritual, or consciousness, consisting of consciousness, and the explicit, which is the world as we perceive it, as we feel it. So this is what cosmology is about. There is a continuum between the exploration of matter and the exploration of the outer world and the investigation of the inner world. And that is why this conference covers such a broad, such an all-encompassing sphere of knowledge. And as was raised in the previous session, there is always the question that do we really need a cosmology? As long as it remains theory, we are free, of course, to believe in any notions that appeal to us. And all civilizations have done that throughout the ages, whether in the form of what we call mythology or in more sophisticated intellectual constructs. However, if we come to the point where our cosmologies can lead to scientific applications, which means technological developments, that is when concepts carry an added significance. And whether they are used for evidence or for positive purposes, as we can see, for example, of nuclear energy, among many discoveries which came out of certain mathematical, physical concepts that were codified into laws, we know that at that point we get understanding which is not necessarily complete and final, but which is at least a guiding light for us to develop certain forms of civilizational development in the material field as well. So I think our four speakers will take us through the gamut from conceptual awareness to pragmatic projection and application. Therefore, I would now give the floor to the first speaker, Venerable Bhadracharya from Nepal. And I would request all speakers to try to remain within the limit of 15 to 18 minutes, so that there are a few minutes left in the end for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, respected chair. Dear respected chair and dear panelists, speakers, and audience, viewers who are here to support us. I may not forget to thanks to the organizer after my talk. So I take a couple of minutes. Second, to thanks to the organizer for organizing this conference and inviting us. And you guys make me to visit Gujarat, which is, I think, holy place because of the Mahatma Gandhi and his land. Without taking more time, so I'm going to present my PowerPoint. It is not for much discussion. Also, it is not for the, I think it is not thought-provoking also. It is just I'm going to introduce a practice of Nepal in which people every day in their daily life, they offer a part of Buddhist cosmology as a Buddhist practitioner. So here, may not be so beautiful, but it is a one art called the Ratna Mandala. In fact, it is a picture of a painting of a part of Buddhist cosmology. The term Lokadhatu refers to the cosmos in Buddhism, maybe Brahmanda in Hinduism. The entire cosmos is called Tri Sahasra Mahasasra Lokadhatu. It means the total number of cosmos are Tri Sahasra Mahasasra in Buddhism. It is understood as an infinite number. So each Lokadhatu comprises 31 realms. Usually it is counted from bottom to top. The 31 realms are mentioned in Sanskrit and Pali term as follows. Naiva Sagya Na Sagya Yetana, it starts from 31st to 01, and the same thing has been already presented by our previous speaker from Spain. So I'm not taking time to read out all the 31 these Lokadhatus. So that start from the Naiva Sagya Na Sagya Yetana and they end with the Naraka Loka. From the bottom, the upper 11 realms are known as the Kama Dhatu. From the 12th to 27th realms as the Rupa Dhatu, and from the 28th to 31st realms as the Arupa Dhatu. Thus, Kama Dhatu consists of 11 realms, Rupa Dhatu 16 realms, and Arupa Dhatu 4. It is believed that the Sumeru Mount rose to the Trayatringsa realms, the 7th realm, and it is believed that God, the Devraj Indra, reside over there. So now look at a little bit about the Nyawa Buddhism, because I'm talking about this Ratna Mandala, a part of Buddhist cosmology, offering as a Buddhist practice in Nyawa Buddhism. So it's it will be so contextual to say something about Nyawa Buddhism. Nyawa Buddhism is the Buddhist tradition being practiced by the Nyawa community, who are the inhabitants of Kathmandu Valley from the prehistoric period to the modern period. By tradition, Nyawa Buddhism is of the Mahayana Vajrayana sect of Buddhism. Nyawa Buddhism is generally considered as the last remaining Sanskrit Buddhism with many uniqueness in the world. Ratna Mandala offering. So this is the part of the Buddhist cosmology. So in Nyawa Buddhism, there is a practice known as the Ratna Mandala offering. The Ratna Mandala is offered to the gurus. This Ratna Mandala offer on various occasions. The Ratna Mandala offering is made and offered in various ways in terms of the material used for making the Ratna Mandala. Ratna Mandala is offered with a hand gesture as well. It can be said that the offering Ratna Mandala could be performed with Ratna Mandala hand gesture. The Ratna Mandala offering is also made through the mind only. The same can be said of the Ratna Mandala offering through meditation. No matter what materials and or way are applied for Ratna Mandala offering, in fact the mantras, texts, etc. are chanted all the time are the same. It is therefore the subject matter of the Ratna Mandala offering is the same one, With this view, it can be said that Ratna Mandala is of only one type, which means no variance of Ratna Mandala. But it is made and offered in various ways. They are as follows. Ratna Mandala offering rituals on the various way. Number one, there is a very common and widely used ritual called Guru Mandala Puja. In this process of ritual, the performer puts 21 pieces of flowers on the Guru Mandala, a diagram drawn with stone powder on the floor. Then it is followed by Panchopachara Puja, offering 5 essential objects, and Ratna Mandala offering and the Stuti. Now, secondly, in the process of a ritual performance, the Yajamana makes a circle diagram with stone powder or water as per the instruction of the Guru. Then he puts 21 pieces of flowers followed by the Panchopachara Puja, Ratna Mandala offering and a Stuti. Finally, Ratna Mandala, the 21 pieces of flowers, etc. is handed over to the Guru as offering the Ratna Mandala. And thirdly, in the context of Vajrayana initiation, we call the Diksha or Abhisheka, some other ritual also like Tara Puja, etc. Each follower is instructed to make a Ratna Mandala with Kunda flower on the Thavu, is a new term, a special bronze disc, followed by the Panchopachara Puja, Ratna Mandala offering and a Stuti. In the case of the initiation ritual, the Upadhyaya Guru, there will be chiefly 2 Guru in an initiation program, like a Mula Acharya Guru and the Upadhyaya Guru. Here the Upadhyaya Guru educates the participating disciples on the entire cosmos with the Buddhist perspective and highlights the required faith and the dedication to the Guru. The process is followed by Panchopachara Puja, Ratna Mandala offering and a Stuti. Finally, the Ratna Mandala, the bronze disc with the 21 pieces of Kunda flowers with Durva grass, is offered to the Gurus, followed by the Padarga ritual, pouring down cow milk, 5 unbroken rice, 5 Kunda flowers, and the Durva grass, and 5 puff rice, a coin with a conch to the Guru's feet. And another way of offering Ratna Mandala is as per the instruction of the Guru, a disciple can also make an offer of Ratna Mandala made of uncooked rice, Kunda flowers with Durva grass and coins on the bronze discs. In the context of Sesabali, it is a very, very sacred Guhya ritual. A Ratna Mandala is made on Jona Lapte. It is a newer term, a specific leaf, maybe the Philodendron imperial, I'm not sure, with uncooked rice and offered to the Gurus. The Yajamana holds the Ratna Mandala with his right hand, and the Guru holds the Yajamana's left hand by his left hand. Finally, both of them take steps like dancing together while chanting specific gathas. On some occasion, Ratna Mandala is also made with a hand gesture while chanting all the mantras, etc. takes and finally offer to the Gurus. Here, Ratna Mandala making and offering are made with hand, body, with mind, body, and speech without using any materials. In some contexts, Ratna Mandala is made and offered through the mind only. In this process, one takes a seat in meditation posture and meditates, visualize the Ratna Mandala followed by Panchopachara Puja and identifies bodily parts with Ratna Mandala and visualize non-duality or oneness nature of world and the life. Then finally offer the life and the world to the Gurus. This way of offering Ratna Mandala is a part of the Guru Yoga practices. Now look at the, let's look at the mantras, etc. texts chanted while making and offering Ratna Mandala, including the eulogy or stuti to the Guru. They are as follows. There are 2 types of texts. That one text is about the instruction text, and next one is the text for chanting. For example, Mandalam Brahmayitva Puspamekam Balo Chipet. It is instruction to the practitioner. And Om Sarva Vignanur Sarayahum. It is a text for chanting. It is a kind of mantra. And again, so Om Ham Maha Madhya Merve Namaha. Om Ring Madhya Merve Namaha. Om Sung Suksma Madhya Merve Namaha. Om Yam Purva Vidahaya Namaha. Om Ranjambu Dipaya Namaha. Om Lang Apara Godavariye Namaha. Om Ban Uttara Kurve Namaha. Om Ya Upadvipaya Namaha. Om Ra Upadvipaya Namaha. Om La Upadvipaya Namaha. Om Va Upadvipaya Namaha. So these are the about the Ashtadvipa of this world. And now next one is the Ashtaratna. It is believed that they are surrounded by the 8 jewels. They are the Om Ya Gajaratnaya Namaha, Om Ra Aswaratnaya Namaha, Om Laha Purusharatnaya Namaha, Om Va Stri Ratnaya Namaha, Om Ya Khadgaratnaya Namaha, Om Ra Chakraratnaya Namaha, Om La Mani Ratnaya Namaha, Om Va Sarva Niranebhyo Namaha, Om Chan Chandraya Namaha, Om Sun Suryaya Namaha, Om Ahum Sri Bhadrasatto Guruve Namaha. Then it will be followed by the Panchopachara Puja, chanting the mantras. Om Bhadra Gandhe Swaha, Om Bhadra Puspe Swaha, Om Bhadra Dhupe Swaha, Om Bhadra Naibadya Swaha, Om Bhadra Lajaya Swaha. Then after the Ratnamanda will be offered to the Guru, chanting these slokas. Om Chatu Ratnamayam Meru Mastadvipo Pasobitam Nana Ratna Sama Kiranam Tadenu Taradayinaha Gurubhya Buddha Dharmebhyo Sange Vyascha Tathaivacha Niryatayami Bhavena Sampurna Ratna Mandalam. Thereafter again one sloka will be chanted as follows. Om Ahum Srimat Vadrasatto Guruvara Charana Kamalaya Samyik Jnana Bhavasana Karaya Namohum Namastestu Namo Namaha Bhaktyahantuan Namasyami Guru Natha Prasidame. So this way this Ratnamanda will be offered. When we look at this offering and the chanting, this Om Sarva Vignanu Sarayahum, it is a mantra text. It is for the removing the obstacles before making the Ratna Mandala. And Om Ham Mahamadya, Ring Madhya, Sung Suksma Madhya, these are the second, third, and the fourth mantras with the seed letters. Texts are related to the 3 Sumerus, means 3 part of the Sumeru mountain, the upper, middle, and the lower part of the Sumeru, respectively. And then Om Yam Purva Vidahaya Nama, Om Ranjambu Dipaya, Om Apara Godavadi, Uttara Kuru, Ya Upadvipa, Ra Upadvipa, La Upadvipa, Va Upadvipa. So these are the 12 mantras with seed letters. So the 4 continents, Mahadvipa, and the 4 subcontinent, Upadvipas, they are the Purva Videha, and it is in east, and the Jambu Dvipa in the south, Appara Godayani or Appara Godavari Dvipa in west, and Uttar Kuru Dvipa in north direction. Similarly, Ya Upadvipa, Ra Upadvipa, La Upadvipa, and Va Upadvipa in 4 corners. And then it is, and the other text, the Gajaratna, Aswaratna, these 8, the 13 to 20 mantras are seed letter, stand for the 8th jewel called the Ashtaratna. However, mostly in Buddhism, they talk about the Saptaratna, but in our Buddhist tradition, there are the 8 Ratnas, concept of Ashtaratna. The Gajaratna in the east, Aswaratna in south, Purusharatna in west, and Sriratna in north. Similarly, Khadgaratna in southeast, Chakraratna in southwest, Maniratna in northwest, and Sarva Nidana Kalasharatna in northeast direction, respectively. And finally, Om Chan Chandraya Namaha, Om Sun Suryaya Namaha. So these 2 mantras related with the there are the 21st mantra, and which seed letter represents the moon, not only moon, in fact, it is entire nakshatras in space. And the 22nd mantras, which seed letter represents the sun, not only sun, but the entire grahas, solar system in space. And finally, the 23rd mantra doesn't denotes the Vajrasattva, the Adi Buddha reciting at the top of the Sumeru mountain. Then The next 5 mantras are of Panchapachara Puja, offering essential object to the Ratna Mandala. And I'm not going to chant all the mantras now. I'm going to save a little time. And the next text is about the offering the Ratna Mandala to the Guru. And this is the mantras or stanza chanted with the certain melody, just like Wang Ahung Srimat Sadguru Bharat. I think I miss one more text here. Yeah, I miss one text. So this is the final text about the eulogy, stuti to the Guru. So thus complete the Ratna Mandala offering ritual. So what is the Ratna Mandala after all? So the Ratna Mandala made according to the above text presents a part of cosmos with a Buddhist perspective as follows. Firstly, the Mount Sumeru is believed to have been situated at the center of the world and consists of 3 parts, lower, middle, and the top. And secondly, the seed letters Yara Lava stand for the 4 great elements sphere. They are air sphere, or you can say Vayu Mandal, Agni Mandal, Jal Mandal, Prithvi Mandal, respectively, and the cause of the origin of 4 continents in 4 directions and the force of continents in 4 cardinal directions. It is also believed that there are 7 other mountains, namely Nimindhara, Yugadhara, Isadhara, Khadira, Sudarshana, Vinita, Ashwakarna mountain. And similarly, there are 7 types of ocean, namely Lavanada, Ikshuda, Madhya, Ghrita, Dadi, Dugdha, and Jala oceans. So there are 6 realms of existence: hell realm, hungry ghost realm, animal realm, human realm, demigod realm, and God realm, heavenly realm. So the God realm refers to Chatu Maharaja Kayika realm, Trayatringsa realm, Yama realm, Tushita realm, and the Nirmana Rati realm, and the Parinirmita Basavartini realm. So the Sumeru is central mountain for the all realms to the Trayatringsa heavenly realm. So thirdly, there are 8 jewels in the outer circle of the continent and subcontinents. Fourthly, a mass of nakshatras and the grahas are located around above the middle part of the Sumeru, and below the Chatur Maharaja Kayika realm, the world or the entire realms that are around Mount Sumeru is regarded as the Ratna Mandala. That is why this Ratna Mandala is a part of the cosmos with the Buddhist perspective. So after observation of the Ratna Mandala, offering, ritual, and study of the mantras, etc. texts that are applied for the same rituals, it becomes clear that Ratna Mandala is a part of the Buddhist cosmos. And the Ratna Mandala offering is an act of offering a part of the Buddhist cosmos to gurus for a very specific purpose. The offering Ratna Mandala is regarded as the highest offering to the gurus in Vajrayana tradition. So thus, the living traditions of imparting the knowledge of cosmos from a Buddhist perspective can be reflected in the Ratna Mandala offering ritual in Nyawa Buddhism. So this way, I would like to conclude my presentation, again stressing upon that or emphasizing upon that the Ratna Mandala offering practice is a part of offering the part of cosmos with the Buddhist perspective in Vajrayana tradition. And thus is the end of my presentation here. One is the Ratna Mandala drawing, and next one is the Ratna Mandala carved in the silver. That's all. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm on time. Yeah, please. Yeah, I should remove it and it will be easy for others, right? Yeah, you carry on.
Thank you very much, Professor Bhattacharya, Venerable Naresh Bhattacharya. I think what we felt and saw is that the Ratna Mandala is very much a coded language which is meant to open communication means with the universe as a whole and with specific forces, intelligences, and factors that are part of this universe. Now, as we have seen, this is also a fundamental aspect for a human being to center himself within the cosmos, to find his role and his position. And it is also a way to invoke. So it is a language, perhaps a sacred or sacred language, but all these languages have their function and means, and every civilization has created them, which means that they are an essential part of human development. And therefore, we cannot take them as either superstition or mere, priestly artifice. It is very much part of the unfoldment of consciousness into the human stage and beyond. I would now request Venerable Khenpo Dorji to come to this to this.
With my respect to venerable monks in the Sangha, with greetings to the chair and all the distinguished panelists and distinguished delegates and all brothers and sisters in Dharma and Dhamma. It is a very privilege for me to join in this 8th International Conference on Cosmology in Dharma and Dharma in this Gujarat city, which has long-standing tradition that belongs to the strong Indian civilization. Gujarat, which is adjoining to Vajrasasana or Bodh Gaya, has been credited as one of the origin that backs that Gujarati language has been one of the major language that the Buddhist manuscripts and the Buddhist literature has been preserved. Some critics may say that Buddhism has disappeared from Indian soil in the 13th century, but I should say that still the seed of Buddhism has been firmly established or firmly sown, that where today, like distinguished speakers, think tank, scholars like today, we are vested with responsibilities and obligations to revive and to nurture this Buddha Sasana and to be further spread and propagate across the world. Unlike the past speakers and presenters who have unveiled and uncovered manuscripts, literature, and they have presented their views and understanding on the cosmology and the cosmic philosophy and cosmic consciousness. However, I may speak in neither a holistic or in another way, highlighting some of our thoughts and actions that may be impactful or harmful to this universe world. So to this, I may highlight 2 important points. Cosmology in the ages of this 21st century, which we call as the age of strife and degeneration. So cosmology is fundamental to many aspects, not only in Buddhism, not only in Buddhist way of life. Rather, it is very important to our daily life, even in the family life, to create harmonious family life, to bring peace and prosperity in the society, and to better make this world a livable. However, all of the realms in this existence, be it mundane or supermundane, are all governed by the law of karma, which is very much elements or components of this cosmology or cosmic world. The Acharya Vasubandhu, the philosopher of Abhidharma, in Abhidharma Kosha Karika has says that all the lele jikte nasoke dini sempa dangjeba, all these animate or inanimate beings are born from karma, and this karma is influenced by our thoughts and actions. So these thoughts and actions are one of the pioneering that provokes karma, that results cosmology, be it impactful or harmful. Our thoughts and actions are very much related to the cosmic elements like earth, fire, water, wind, and space. For instance, the nature of the space of the sky is pure, undisturbed, and unobstructed. However, the clouds appear and the sky gets obstructed. But I would say that this cloud will momentarily stay, and in a next few minutes it will disappear. But we should know that where this cloud disappears, it disappears within the space itself. No one has gone there to search the cloud, or no one has blown off the cloud. So likewise, our mind, which is something like a man moderator, is said to be very pure, clear, and stable from the beginningless of time. However, due to many incoming discursive thoughts, emotions, then our mind gets disturbed, agitated, unstable. But again, we should know that this mind will never remain disturbed, agitated. It will just remain for momentarily, just for a moment. You can just see that. Then, when we observe the mindfulness, introspection, the four application of mindfulness, then in a moment later, then all these discursive thoughts, anxiety, anger, hatred, attachment will just disappear within your mind itself. There's nothing to throw out. There's nothing such that to give away or to throw away all emotions. It is only by guiding our mind with the application of mindfulness introspection. The more you meditate, the more you guide your mind with mindfulness, the lesser your mind gets disturbed, the more your mind becomes peace, tranquil, and peaceful. So likewise, fire and water. Where our mind towards our enemy, we burn our anger like a fire. In reality, we burn our merit, virtue, and wisdom. Towards a loved ones, then we stir our desire, attachment like a water. We rather consume these five poisons. So this is how our mind is literally connected to these cosmic elements. In addition, I'd like to relate how cosmology in Bhutan is going with the philosophy of gross natural happiness. As I mentioned, that cosmology is the true nature that we belong to, and it is our fundamental responsibility and obligations to protect. The GNH, or the guiding philosophy of Bhutan, propagates or promotes with the four pillars. these four pillars are emphasized on the preservation of environment, promotion of culture and national identities, and the balanced life and spiritualism. So preservation of environment has become one of much debate and questionable among the thinkers, among the government leaders. Bhutan, though a landlocked country with just less than 1 million population, is contributing to the much greater impactful or greater benefit of the world by consuming or by creating or by maintaining the carbon neutral country, by contributing to the world in terms of the climate change. So the cosmic life, the cosmic elements like the river, the ecosystem, the mountain and the glaciers are one of our very crucial components that binds or that withstand this cosmic life. So many speakers over the times have highlighted that the cosmic philosophy is beginningless and endless. It is true, but what is our solution? Should we just keep it beginningless and endless without any concrete solution or concrete action? I would propose to all the distinguished speakers, let's approach the middle way by not indulging our thoughts and action against the will of cosmic elements and the cosmology. Our thoughts are always to the benefit of others. We always think and concentrate to the benefit of this Mother Earth. But at least our thoughts and actions get contradict each other, then the victim of our thoughts and actions falls to this mother world. The elements of this cosmic world are interlinked, are interconnected with the Pratitya Samudbada or 12 dependent origination or the dependent origination, where the life of our animated beings will remain in the cyclic existence of this 12 dependent origination. It doesn't mean that once we exist from this present life, it doesn't mean that it ends there. Rather, we need to continue another consecutive lives, who knows, for 100 of years or 1,000 years. Now, in order to have much better life than today, again, our thoughts and actions should be wholesome, impactful to this mother world, impactful to not only this mother world, but yourself. The great 8th century saint Padmasambhava, or the great saint of Udayana, has said that, I quote, "Your thoughts may be as high as the sky, but keep your actions as fine as barley flour." I unquote. Our thoughts are uncontrollable. our mind acts like a king. If the king, for instance, if the king is a dharmic king, a meritorious king, then he rules and guides the country in line with dharma, and he spread peace and happiness to the nation and people. However, if the king is undisciplined, if the king is a sinful one, then he will ruin the country and he will let his people suffer. So likewise, this mind, invisible, though invisible, but still we can make it visible, stable, pure by contemplating or by guiding it with mindfulness and introspection. I will reiterate that though we may study from the early Buddhist literature and become mastery in Dzogchen or Vajrayana or tantric practices, however, if our thoughts and actions are just premature, or if we just remain in the primitive, then I would say that we are just living, or we are not superior than like just a blind or like handicapped man. It is said that while traveling, we can travel in many modes. Walking on the foot, going or taking car, or by taking flight, which differs in the way we reach fast, faster, and super fast. So likewise, I would say that just learning, just revealing, discovering, uncovering the literature, manuscripts, criticizing may not be much impactful if our thoughts and actions are in discipline, if our thoughts and actions are not trained, then like I said, then we are no more. We are just like a handicapped person which may not be able to. We are just like a blind person which may not be able to reach our destination. So I would say that the cosmology where we live in is not something to deal or not something to dig and analyze on the cosmic consciousness, cosmic literature, or cosmic elements. I would rather encourage, or I would rather propose the distinguished speakers to realize and articulate the thoughts and actions of today's, of this 21st century is impactful, harmful, or have nothing benefit to this Mother Earth or to this human civilization. Then we can make this Mother Earth, this universe, this world livable. So this 21st century is confronted by many obstacles and misfortunes, and we may somehow blame it to the climate change or so and so on. But I would say that it is nonsense. We should blame ourselves that our thoughts and actions that indulges with clinging attachment. So with this, I will not take much time. I would leave, in conclusion, I would leave message to all the distinguished speakers, brothers and sisters in Dharma and Dharma, that you may have your views as vast as ocean, as high as sky, but I would request, please, give your actions to positive, wholesome, or as fine as the barley flour without much harmful to this mother earth, without much harmful to the sentient beings, all these motherly sentient beings around us. So with this, I would like to offer gratitude to the organizing host, Gujarat University, and the BET co-host or sponsor India Foundation, and all the staff that are engaged making this conference successful. Thank you, Tashitele, and Sarva Mangalam.
Thank you very much, Venerable Kempo Dorji. I would now request Professor Devarakonda, Palaganapati Devarakonda, to take the stage.
Thank you so much. So that I can check my time. Yeah, Sabhaya Namaha. Respected Chair, Sri Carpenterji, and other distinguished panelists, and distinguished scholars, invitees, delegates, and dear students who have joined us this afternoon. Let me first thank India Foundation and Gujarat University for this wonderful opportunity that is given to all of us to come together and think about probably less debated theme on cosmology. Even before I begin what I want to say, I would like to record this, that I really miss the presence, physical presence of Professor S.R. Bhatt, whose mind has conceptualized, a part of conceptualizing this program called DHARMA DHAMMA Congress. Yeah, I'm sure even if his physical presence is not here, he must be appreciating the deliberations that are going on now. I have divided my talk into 3 parts, largely. One is from yesterday onwards, I was closely, carefully listening to each of the presentations. Of course, I missed some of the paper presentations. I feel sorry for that. But otherwise, the first thing that I would like to talk about is decolonizing cosmology. Okay, we have been talking about decolonization of knowledge system, Indian knowledge system as well. And in this regard, I thought it is also appropriate to look at cosmology and then try to decolonize it. That would be the first part of it. And second part of my talk would be towards understanding Hindu cosmology in terms of Nasadi Sukta and Bhagavata Purana, because one presents a kind of agnostic perspective and the other presents a very beautiful multiverse perspective. So you find two, divergent perspectives, and probably in between there are many other perspectives of cosmology that you may find in Hindu tradition. And thirdly, I would touch this very important aspect which has been stressed by many of the previous speakers yesterday as well, in terms of relevance of the study of cosmology to our lives. Does it make any sense to study cosmology as it makes sense to study computer science or information technology? Is a very important question that at least youngsters would pose to us, and I thought I should respond to that as well. So these are the 3 things that I would try to quickly talk about. Probably I'll take 5 minutes each so that I can finish it within 15 minutes. That's my target, but let me see how I can go. The first theme that I said that I'm going to deal with is decolonization. So how do we decolonize? Or are there any hints that we find in the classical Indian texts as to how do we decolonize? One of the important aspects when it comes to colonization or decolonization paradigm that we come across is the binary epistemology. Looking at the whole world in terms of 2 binaries and understanding the world to be composed of 2 opposite categories of concepts objects, beings, everything. Okay? So that is a major problem that we come across, because this is what we ingrained our own minds, and also we ingrain the same thing in the minds of our youngsters as well. So which is to be, in fact, I would consider it should be rectified. Because if you keep on telling people that boy and girl are opposites and these are binaries, I don't think that is a proper way of looking at it, because none of the classical traditions would endorse that. They consider male and female, feminine and masculine to be complementary to each other. So that's why I say this binary epistemology somehow, which is fixed into our minds, has to be properly addressed. So how does it make sense to cosmology? Okay. So let me say something about this term that we are using, cosmology itself. Is it an appropriate word to what we have in Indian tradition or Buddhist tradition? Or are we bargaining a word from the Western tradition and trying to see, wear those glasses of cosmology and see whether the cosmology exists there? Are we imposing the categorization which has evolved because of various cultural reasons at a different place, and then trying to see whether something in Indian tradition fits into that? This is a bigger, larger question that we have to address when we talk about cosmology itself, because if you look at the history of the term, it gained its academic market only in the 18th, 19th centuries. Cosmology term has gained its market only in 18th, 19th centuries, I believe. So if that is the case, what was the term before that? No? Is it that there was no cosmology in Indian tradition before that? So what kind of word are we using? The other important aspect of the same perspective is, what would be the Indian word or the Sanskrit word or the Pali word for cosmology, right? Is it just cosmology that we have to use, or some people, some ideas, I was also talking to some of our friends, Sanskritists as well. So, Khagola Shastra, does that talk about it? No. If that is not the one, then Brahmanda Purana we have. So, Brahmanda Shastra, or what else? Prapancha Shastra? Because Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta uses Prapancha to refer to the cosmos. So what is the word that we have in our own tradition, and then see whether this cosmology fits into that, right? So that is the kind of exercise which is actually required probably by all of us. So I'm just leaving it open. I don't have any answers to this question, but I thought it is relevant to ask this question: what is Indian cosmology beyond this word cosmology that we are using now? So that's the first one. And when we look at cosmology from the Western perspective, they would immediately talk to us saying that there is a theistic cosmology, there is an atheistic cosmology, and then whatnot, right? Different dimensions of cosmology that may come up. But if you look at Nasadi Sukta, which I am going to talk about, in fact, yesterday, those who are in the inauguration might have noticed that Nasadi Sukta of Rig Veda was displayed continuously in the background. Continuously, because that's the first ever attempt by human beings to understand how creation might have come into existence. So it was continuously displayed. And if you look at that, it doesn't talk about, you cannot categorize that to be theistic cosmology. And at the same time, you cannot consider that to be atheistic cosmology. Okay? So this is what I'm saying. It is not that world is divided into binaries. In fact, knowledge system is always beyond the binaries. And that's what a process of decolonization has to look at. So I believe that is another important aspect that we have to look at. And also, we often draw parallels between the cosmology as it is done, as it is looked, as it is understood by the modern Western scientists, and then bring the same concepts here and try to see whether Indian philosophy or Indian philosophical system or Indian knowledge system fits into that, where we try to draw parallels. And then some insights would obviously come out of the parallels, if the parallels are whether it's parallels are superficial or deeply rooted. So how do we understand whether it is deeply rooted or superficial is also another major concern that we come across. So it's not, probably initially when you looked at this theme, cosmology, it might have looked very plain and clear. But when I started exploring into it, I did not find it to be very plain and clear. It is so complicated for me because I don't know. Where do I begin? Do I begin with Indian cosmology, saying that Buddhist cosmology and Hindu cosmology is Indian? Or am I borrowing the categorization that is provided elsewhere and trying to look for, as I said, I keep my specs from elsewhere, blue specs, and try to look at the world through them? Are we doing that? I don't know. I don't have answers, but I think all of us have to explore these questions and look for the answers. Now let me move towards the second part of my presentation, which is looking at Nasadi Sukta and Bhagavata Purana. When I was reading these two, in fact, now I'm teaching Nasadi Sukta, that is how I was going deep into it and trying to understand each word, each root of each word, etc. And incidentally, I also happened to read for the last few months Bhagavata Purana. So I thought I should draw insights from these two. Because one, for the sake of those who are new to this Nasadi Sukta, it's a part of Rig Veda's 10th Mandala, 129th Sutra. That is called Nasadi Sukta. In fact, before that, we also come across Purusha Sukta, talking about same creation, but that's a cosmic person evolving himself, but this is sacrificing himself and evolving into the world. And this is Nasadi Sukta, which begins in a very interesting way. Interesting way in the sense that, as I said, it cannot be considered to be theistic, it cannot be considered to be atheistic, and probably it is neither theistic nor atheistic, or probably it is both theistic and atheistic as well. That is where I believe Shankaracharya's description of Anirvachaniya fits into many places when we start reading the Vedic literature. Anyway, the first sutra says, Nasadasinno sadasit tadaniyam. Okay? So, let me just try to explain this. Na asat asit. This whole sutra deals with Sat and Asat. And when it is trying to refer to Sat and Asat, which means reality and non-reality, or existence or non-existence, being or non-being, okay? So I'm sure, I assume that people who are from the Indian tradition understand this word Sat and Asat, okay? So if that is the case, it says Sat na Asit, which means basically isn't is, and is not. No, see, basically attributing the same thing to the same thing. Existence of the existence, non-existence of the existence, both are not there. So that's an interesting kind of articulation that we come across, where when we in general understand this phone exists, phone doesn't exist. Okay, so these are the two binaries, two ways, binary conception that we have. It tries to talk about both the existence and its non-existence. So earlier state of it, that's what it tries to refer, and then onwards it starts explaining how existence might have come into existence. No? Do you understand? Basically, it's talking about isness itself. It's not talking about isness of a table or a human being. It is talking about isness itself, existence itself, which is a very interesting way of beginning. So the opening verse sets a scene of absolute void intermediacy, where neither existence nor non-existence is defined, and the fundamental elements of nature as we know them are absent. It is not the case that isn't is. It is not the case that isn't. So that's the kind of the interplay of the words, and also subtle conceptualization of the reality that you come across in the beginning itself, beginning verse itself. And the second verse talks about a solitary entity coming into existence and breathing life into the universe as a manner beyond human understanding, in a realm where conventional concepts of life, death do not apply at all. So because in such kind of a conception, how can you apply whether death or birth to such kind of a state. So, see, basically the conception itself is so refined and so subtle that it goes beyond the whatever evolution or existence that we are referring to. And also, in that particular second verse, we come across a word, swadhaya tadekam, which means we come across this in sui generis in the modern Western philosophy, which was used long back in Rigveda's 10th mandala, which is like only that on its own comes into existence. That is the only one, and that is how it came into existence on its own, right? So the substance definition that you find in modern Western philosophy comes up in this particular verse. And in the third and fourth verse especially, I don't want to go deep into it. Fourth verse basically introduces the concept of desire or primal will as the first manifestation of consciousness. It suggests that the ancient sages, through their contemplation and insight, perceived a fundamental connection between existence and non-existence. So what is the first one that came up? It is a kind of desire, and then everything comes into existence. So even with regard to this emergence of universe, the question that is asked is, was there something below? Was there something above? But there were seed bearers that are mighty forces, which are potentialities. The universe emerged from this complex interaction, and from it arose the breath of life. And the sixth one is very important. It just has 7 verses, and the sixth one, after explaining all this, says, Ko adha veda, ka eha pravochat. Who really knows? Who will proclaim it? Kuta ajata, whence was it produced? Kuta iyam visrushtaha, how did it come into existence? So, like, who knows it, whether the world came into existence, universe came into existence, and who can talk about it? It asks these questions, and then immediately it moves to a very interesting statement where it says, even gods have come later on, right? So, arvag devaha asya visarjanena, which means even the gods have come after the evolution. So who can talk about it? It's not even gods, it's something more than that. That's why I'm saying you cannot consider it to be theistic or atheistic, no? So that's the kind of interesting way of looking at, no? This is the earliest way of looking at it. Some people may call Rigvedic knowledge to be primitive, but actually it is primary and more foundational than any other refined knowledge that we can talk about, right? So that's how basically the conception of creation that goes on in this Nasadi Sukta. Now we call this, by using the Western categorization, agnostic attitude, okay? So now the point is, what is agnosticism? And does it really mean the kind of agnosticism that the word agnosticism carries as a Western term or concept? Okay, that is a big question to me. Okay, the existence of God, the divine or the supernatural, is either unknowable in principle or currently unknown in fact, is what agnosticism means. But I don't think in this particular sense agnosticism can be applied to agnosticism that is exhibited in Nasadi Sukta. In fact, I'm using the same word to negate the same word. No, that's what I want you to understand. Unfortunately, even in my Indian philosophy classes, I tell them, when we teach Indian philosophy in English, we are already distorting 50 to 60% of its meaning, and remaining 20 or 30% would go in the communication. And then I don't know how much really the student gets in. No, that's the unfortunate situation in which we are. In fact, from Rajasthan University, Professor Dayakrishna, that's why he made a very interesting comment saying that Indian philosophy done in English is not Indian philosophy, which is a very provocative one. Okay, but still, people got offended and people came out with volumes to disprove what Dayakrishna has said. But still, I believe there is a strong sense of commitment to Indian philosophy that Dayakrishna exhibits when he makes this statement, which is to be noted and understood by the youngsters at least. No? in understanding Indian philosophy. So that's where, what does it say? Does it make any statement about the limitations of reality? When we talk about, when I narrated this Nasadi Sukta, if you call it agnosticism, does it have any limitations on the reality itself? Or does it talk about limitations on the epistemology of the individual who is trying to understand the reality? Right? It actually posits a limitation on us. It doesn't posit any limitations on the reality itself, which is being presented here. So that epistemological limitation is very important that we should look at. Yeah, I'm concluding. The last point that I would like to, Bhagavata Purana, in fact, 6.1637 talks about multiverse. Okay, Bhagavad, you know, Puranas were also written long back, early centuries. Every universe is covered with 7 layers according to Bhagavata Purana. Earth, water, fire, air, sky. These 5 things we know. It talks about the total energy. And then false ego. So it says every universe is covered with these 7 things, 7 layers. Each one is 10 times greater than the previous one. What? Earth, water, fire, air, sky, the total energy and false ego. Each one of them is 10 times greater than the previous one. And there are innumerable universes besides this one in which we are living, although they are unlimitedly large. They move about like atoms which are moving within you. So this is how it is explained. So that's where when Mr. Carpenter was asking this question, like, are we talking about Brahmanda or Brahmavidya? In fact, we find many references which can help us understanding that we are talking about both. We are not just talking about external reality and its evolution. We are at the same time talking about internal reality that exists within us, which is very well presented in this Bhagavata Purana. Now, the question is, relevance of the study of cosmology to our lives, how cosmology influences human actions. See, whether you consider it, whether you know it or not, nature influences you. Natural laws govern you. Similarly, whether you consider it to be existent or not, cosmic laws are also existent and they are influencing us. Just because we don't know the radioactive rays until some century ago, it's not that they don't exist. Okay? Now we are only using them, knowing them and using them. But that doesn't mean that they did not exist before. Similarly, the cosmic laws, cosmology definitely exists around us and governs us and helps us to move forward. And this is where, since I spoke about Rig Veda, Rita, concept Rita is also very important. Rita is understood to be ethical, moral principle in the sense that it is only trying to tell us that if you're following, Rita is to be followed as a cosmic order, as an ethical principle in the sense that the biological laws, which you cannot do anything. You are already governed by biological laws inside. Okay, these are governed by the natural laws, and these natural laws are already being aligned with the cosmic laws and being governed. And your human actions, which are voluntary, are to be aligned with these biological laws, and then natural laws, and then with the cosmic laws. That's what is considered to be ethical. Ethical, not in the sense of any other, like deontology or utilitarianism, but ethical with reference to alignment of individuals' biological voluntary actions with the biological, with the natural, with the cosmic. So that's where I think I should stop because, I finished my time. Thank you so much for this, for your patience hearing, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Devanakonda Balaganapati Padalavakonda. Unfortunately, we are running behind time, and yet we have another speaker who has come all the way from Texas in the United States. He's a senior engineer in a major multinational, in a major corporation which is primarily involved in defense and aerospace. And so his approach to some aspects of Indian cosmology is very unique because he years ago became fascinated by the work done by an Indian scientist who is no more with us, but Mr. Dan Rogers has dedicated quite some time in his life now to working on that and developing it into a system that is more easily understandable, perhaps, to the modern mathematical and physical scientists and practitioners. So, Mr. Dan Rogers.
Check.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Dan Rogers. I'm really pleased to be here. It's kind of brave of Combe to invite me, so I thank the India Foundation and the university for inviting me, and I hope I can add to the talks and to the knowledge. And you can go ahead and put up the. So actually, Gopali Krishnan was an engineer, certified Indian engineer, who worked on science, and I'm trying to pick up where he left off and take it all the way through engineering applications. And that's really what we're trying to do. I'm going to get to the first, let's see if we can back it up here. Okay. So the first thing to note is American, and it's been noted. And so what that means is I'm the child in the room when it comes to Veda knowledge. And an engineer is the second one, which Combe mentioned. And so I think in terms of applied, and that's what G. Srinivasan was thinking of. We're trying to take it from the theory, the science, all the way through engineering, advanced power generation and propulsion systems is really what we're trying to do. And so he named it, his work is called Secret of Sankhya, the acme of scientific unification. So the first thing to note is the word secret. And what that means, what he meant by it, I think, is it's an encoded science. And then the acme of unification, it actually turns out it's a full-blown qualified quantum theory. And it comes directly from the 68 karikas, the verses, I guess, or axioms, the simple truths. And from that, he spent 30 to 40 years decoding that and built out the science and put it in a 2-volume book with this title. So I'm going to try to take you through my interpretation of what I got out of it, and hopefully you'll at least know that that exists. So the first one is just to show you the doorway and to explain why that's important, and that it's a rediscovered natural philosophy. You know, the meter wasn't discovered in the 1700s. Nature discovered that a long time ago. And so, and this science wasn't discovered recently, it was rediscovered. So we'll take you through that. It's ancient, it's pre-flood. It's a lot of natural insight to it. It was extremely influential over time, and in terms of empowering mind and machine, or connecting our mind and machine to nature's wheel work, it gives us a lot of ways to move forward. So what I mean by doorway to freedom with a question mark is that I think there may be a connection, at least in my mind, Santana Dharma with this phrase from the Declaration of Independence, 1776, for the United States. And so, assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle. So I don't think a lot of people comprehend really what that means. First, they really don't know what the laws of nature are, and if they did, they'd know the potential that mankind was built to plug right into it. And then the other part that they may not be spun up on is the powers of the earth, and there's kind of two categories. There's the cataclysm that reset civilizations every now and again, and then there's the power structures, the people organize themselves and take over. And to the extent that you know nature's law and can assume your separate and equal station, you're going to do better at dealing with those powers that be. Okay, so why is it important? And this is a quote from G. And it's really because it can open up the gamut of human potential, and that's really what we're trying to do here. So it's an important subject, and it's why he spent so much time with it. So we'll use this as a context phrasing question, which is from Swami Vivekananda. And so what is the universe? From what does it arise? Into what does it go? And if you look at the answer, it implies a cycle in there, but we're trying to take it down a level. A little more applied intuition is what we need for this. So it's a good start. And so my question is there a science that exists that can be understood by an engineer, somebody like me, to explain that? And that's really what I was in search of. And I found it. And so if you look, East and West philosophically was aligned in the 1890s when Swami Vivekananda visited. He hooked up with Nikola Tesla, and they shared the concepts, and Nikola Tesla understood what Swami was saying. And so they were onto something, and so there was some mind meld. And then more than that, this takes it the next layer down of understanding. So look at the words that Tesla uses. First he says long ago. How long ago we'll talk about. But the words he uses, the substratum, the imperceptible matter from which everything's created and swirls and then it returns to it. So that's starting to get to the answer that Swami Vivekananda was asking. So Maharishi Kapila Muni, Ansat, we'll kind of jump to the chase here, is that he figured out how to integrate time and space in a cubic matrix form. And that, from there, you could explain the polarization of this substratum space into everything we call manifestation. So one would be the permanent, the substratum, which is not detectable, but when it's polarized into matter, then that's when we see it. That sometimes people refer to that as Maya or illusion, and it's really meant because it's temporary. And so it's really a set of axioms that based on a single interaction that nature works from bottom to top, and that's the three gunas. There's the compression, the tama, the raja or the shuttling, and then the sattva or the expansion. That's a technical explanation, and it was practiced holistically and ritually, and eventually gained the religious equation. But what G is saying is it really is the elite concept of practicing axiomatic laws, and he called that dharma. So the process, that single interaction process that happens in 3 steps, but it's simultaneous, that process he's calling dharma. And this is at a time that was before the split in science and religion. It was more of just how does, and use Nikola Tesla's term, nature's will work operate. And that's really what it's doing. And so they figured out how to combine the simultaneous activity with the sequential activity in this interaction process. And then that became the basis for all the other Vedic texts. And so you ask, well, what was the tipping point that led G to discover this? And he started decoding the first sloka of the Rig Veda. And he's I think, a naval architect, engineer, so he wanted to get to the bottom of it. But he really found out that when he translated it, it gave him the source of the coherent energy in space. Where does nature's will work get its energy from? Okay, and so the word dukkha, which I think a lot of commonly is interpreted to mean pain or suffering, it's actually a technical term, a tensor type term. And so he's an engineer, he thinks like an engineer. And so based on that lead, then he went on to transliterate the rest of it into a whole science. And basically, and this is what I spent the last 10 years doing, is proving that it actually answered the question. So every important constant in physics can be derived, and it's an axiom, it's axiomatic. So 1 + 1 = 2 is where it starts. And the other thing that is that it's an encoded one. So how did he start with that first sloka and interpret it? And actually using the human's body's ability to make sounds, there's an encoded number system in there. And if you take and translate the first line, the first sloka, you actually get what he found out was by triggering the expansive qualities of the fundamental substratum, abundant free energy can be obtained. That's the first sloka of the Rig Veda. And so the numbers that go with that, and it's actually a 3D expansion of light per yard back in the time. So this is the kind of power of his interpretation. And so the next thing was long ago. How far is it? So Tilak, and I'm bad with the names and pronunciation, but Lokmanya Tilak discovered, based on constellations, that 6,000 years ago was the first time that, based on the reading the Vedas, that this constellation could be seen. And we know 6,000 years ago, we have a pretty good idea of what history was, and there wasn't the capacity of mankind back then to have this kind of advanced knowledge. So the next time that happened, you have to go back a great year, 26,000. So the 6,000 plus 26 is your 32,000-year-old science. So who was it 32,000 years ago that had a better handle on quantum physics than our leading scientists today? And so he wrote 2 books, if you want to go into more detail. And there's this presentation and a paper that goes with it can be made available, I guess, if people want it. But the analysis is done there. So, and that that the way it was done with that encoding in the karikas and the verses and the intonations and the sounds, it was required. This is all oral tradition, was passed on and became the core of the Bhagavad Gita and then the Mahabharata. So all those pieces, and I'll show a picture of that, how it builds up. And what's important, I think, is the pattern here of the 3 with the Dharma, the 4th one meaning simultaneously, and that same pattern being all the way up. And the key is not to just pick one, but you have to kind of master the whole process. And so if you delve into it deeper in any kind of vertical slice, you get the mental math and the Vedic math, and so all the calculus and differential equations and astronomy mentally could be calculated. So now you begin to understand how they were able to do what they did in some of the other native indigenous cultures that aligned their buildings on it. So they had an advanced knowledge. They knew cycles and they knew how to predict things past and future. And if you start looking into it, and this was a big surprise for me, you know, if Pythagoras, all his number, well, who taught Pythagoras? It turns out it was the same source of knowledge on up through Newton, Nikola Tesla or Victor Schauberger, who actually built things. They weren't scientists, they were applied, they built things. And then all our quantum physicists all look to the Vedas for their knowledge. So it's been very influential over time. So this is the 2-volume set that G did, and it's actually an axiomatic breakdown, and the 1 volume is translation of the axioms into English and everyday words that people can understand. And the other volume uses none of the Sanskrit language or the axioms. It's just pure engineering or scientific explanations. And so between those two, you can start to get a pretty good handle on it. And so what does it look like when you go through all that and kind of get it in your noggin, is that the basic 3 gunas up top are physical. It's the definition of an interaction. You have a compression, Tama, you have the shuttling, Raja, in between, the resonant piece, and then you have the Sattva or expansion. All 3 of those, and then they're balanced. The substratum is balanced. And so that trimodal stress compression cycle forms the substratum. So, you know, we call it the ether, the quantum foam, but they had a definite definition for it. And each of the little cubes that make up the substratum that are not observable is the perpetual harmonic oscillator. So that's all explained in the text. And then there's two limits of that. Purusha, and I know this is where it's going to diverge from some of the other meanings that people share, but this is the maximum if you combine all of it. But the thing about the Purusha is it can be at any one of those points. And it basically is the rest of the connected universe operating and balancing at that point or reacting to something at that point. So anybody, including you or each cell, could be a Purusha or singularity point. The Mula Prakriti is the smallest one on that, and so that's the quantum. So at that quantum level, everything, time, space, charge, mass, all equal one. Do we have to, we're going to wrap it up? Okay, we're almost done then. So this is it, and so I'm going to give you a quick example just to, so empirically we say this is the speed of light. Sankhya says there's really two components. There's a fixed constant, 10 to the 2 over x to the third power, times another component that's a ratio of the distance to the source. And so what that means, and that x happens to be nature's golden ratio, and that's why you see it everywhere. It's fundamental to the way that nature works. And so what happens is, depending on where you are and where you measure your speed of light, it's different. So as you get to the other planets, and so what will happen here is that he suggested ISRO experiments to go out and prove that and measure the speed of light of the different planets. You may have heard of the Pioneer anomaly, and so they were off by so much and it dropped to the ground and busted. It's because they didn't understand this. And so the other takeaway is that the Big Bang really isn't a Big Bang. It's not that the speed of light is constant and things are moving away. It's that the other farther light sources, it's slowed down from there. So that's the real reason. So the universe isn't expanding. So these are some of the things that you can start reading to, but then you can go beyond that. You can start getting into permeability of free space, and start engineering your semiconductors and your transceivers and propulsion and electrical power generation. So we'll wrap it up there if that's good. That gives you an idea of it. So thank you.
Thank you very much to Dan Rogers. He has tried to compress a very complex subject into a few slides. I can tell you that I was in correspondence with J. Srinivasan for years, and we published one of his papers in World Affairs, the journal that I have been associated with for over 20 years. Now, unfortunately, because we have run out of time and the participants and the chair of the next session are present, we unfortunately will not be able to do a question-answer session. I don't know if we can do it perhaps for the 2 sessions at the end of the one that's coming up. So without further ado, I will request the moderator and the participants to the next panel to please come on stage. Sorry to... Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much to all of you, respected chair, to conduct the